Jared Young.
Jared Young, IT.
Lynn.
Perry, business manager.
Todd Sanders, superintendent.
Great, thank you, Dora. Great, thank you. Next, we have review and approval of the agenda of the minutes, prioritization of items and alteration of the established agenda format sequence as needed. Are we all set there? I think so. Next, we have approval of the agenda, which nobody has any objections to it. And approval of the minutes of the previous meetings.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes of the previous meetings.
Want to specify the dates on those, Jesse? March 11th and March 25th, is that right?
March 11th and March 25th.
16th.
Is there 16th in there too?
Okay. March 16th also.
Thank you.
Can we take them individually? Because not everyone is at every meeting.
Sure. Do I change a motion to March 11th?
Okay, I make a motion to change it to March 11th.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you, Nicole. Opposed? Abstained? Did you get that, Lynn? Thank you. All right, Jesse, next one.
Oh, the
March 16th.
March 16th? Okay, March 16th, I'm sorry.
Make a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of that previous meeting.
I'll second it.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain.
Okay, now I
Okay, now I make a motion to the previous meeting of March 25th. 23rd. 23rd.
Was it seconded?
I'll second it.
Oh, you did second it, okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed?
In favor.
Thank you. Abstain? Thank you.
And April 8th.
Oh, we have another one from April the 8th.
Oh,
That's in my packet.
we approve the minutes of the previous meeting, April 8th.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Thank you. Next, we open the floor up for public comment.
You can come right over that mic.
Todd, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we can't hear anything now.
I'll have to unmute the Zoom. Better hear it twice and not at all, right?
Todd, you're muted still.
Yeah. How's that?
Thank you.
So we're going to try that.
Audio feedback consultant, so let us know how things are, okay?
If you come over
If you
here.
could out on the mic, that'd be great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Jared,
Well, Jared, what would you like me to do?
Sorry?
What would you like me to do? Shut this mic off?
No, because it's gonna pick up the speakers. So Well, probably when he's going, I will mute the Zoom until we're ready for the presentation.
Are they going
Are
to
they gonna be able to hear everything that's being said?
On the screen, no.
There's, okay.
What do you think about this?
Okay.
Okay. You should be able to do whatever he has to do. How's that sound?
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you.
My name's Brian.
My name is Brian
Twitchell.
Twitchell. I'm a resident of Peterfield.
And I
wanted to start by telling all of the school board members, thank you
for the work
for the work you're putting into the budget. I know it's a tough job you have,
and it's
greatly appreciated.
I did
I did want to take a moment to tell you two concerns I had, just so that you had heard them. And the first one I know has been discussed is
the issue
of curtailing the budget and supplementing with federal funds,
which
are going to run out in a year or two. And then that creates a big issue when all of a sudden we now need to fund that locally. And I know there's been discussion on that, and I share the concern, and I wish I had solutions.
The other
specific thing I wanted to talk about briefly is maintenance of effort. And my concern here is my understanding is the discussion has been around reducing the teachers in the budget and supplementing with the federal funds for that. One of the things that creates, though, is a potential issue on future state subsidies. In other words, if we present a budget and
that has fewer staff members in it, the next year's subsidy will look at that and say, oh, you didn't need all those staff members, and end up reducing the state subsidy. It's more complicated than that because there are other factors that come into play. But I wanted to share that concern, and like I said, I wish I had solutions, and I don't. But I think it's an important conversation that, as a board, you should have as you work through the budget. Thank you very much.
Can I just speak to that, Brian, and maybe you do know this? Knowing the state, knowing that we'd gotten these federal monies, they won't take into consideration, I mean, they know that that's what these monies are intended for, so that's what the monies are being used for. They wouldn't take, you don't think they would take into consideration? Or we just don't know?
Are we trying to predict what the state will do?
Yeah. You do have a point.
There's my answer.
You do have a point. However, I mean, to me, it is pretty blatant, pretty obvious. Correct me if I'm wrong, Todd, but we get the monies from the feds, and then the state dishes that money out. So this hand ought to know, and I understand we're talking the state, but this hand ought to know what this hand is doing and take that into consideration. If not, they should get a reminder phone call.
Yep. So thank you very much.
No, thank you, Brian. Any more public comment? Okay, thank you. Next we have recognitions and celebrations. We have student essay share by Aiden Morgan, grade 4 at Strong Elementary School.
Yeah, I want to thank Shelby for inviting me. When I was hired by the board, one of the things I said I wanted to do was get into classrooms and interact with students because I enjoyed that so much in my previous settings. And unfortunately, this whole pandemic thing has made already a challenging, to find the time to do that even more challenging. But Shelby did reach out to me and invited me over. She provided me with some questions in advance, some very thoughtful questions about what led me to be a superintendent and things I had done through high school and things of that nature, other jobs I had, what I wanted to be when I grew up. Still don't know, but she invited me over, and it was about the fastest 45 minutes that I've had all year. It was such a joy to be in that class and interact with those kids. And Aiden, who's here tonight, kind of followed up with me after that in a correspondence. So I said, you know what, the board doesn't get the opportunity to get into classrooms and see the good things that kids are doing or interact with students in that capacity, and they should. So I extended an invitation to Aiden, asked him if he wanted to come, and he's over there in the corner. I think he's with his grandmother, and he can tell us who else he's with. But so I asked Aiden if he would come and share his essay. He actually did change it a little bit and added me into his essay at the end, which was interesting. But so Aiden, you want to come up here? Come over here. I'm looking over in that corner. He's over there. I don't have my glass. Aiden, come right up here. Come sit right in this seat.
It's a hot seat, Aiden.
Straight to the front.
Talk right into that. And Aiden did want to know if he could expand after he shared his essay, if he could share other things. I said the floor was his, so.
I agree.
Okay, it's a pain, but you start whenever you're ready.
Part of my assignment was to write exactly 41 words about my favorite verb. Here is what I wrote. I liked the word do because you could do stuff. You can do good or you can do stuff. You can do anything. You can do math, you could do drawing, you could do exercise, you could do writing. Now I will share my career essay with you. My goal for the future is to be a detective. I want to be a detective because you can explore, save lives, stop criminals, and help people stay safe. If you want to be a detective, you have to take a lot of courses in college. You have to take classes like criminal justice and that kind of stuff. Some states make you go to a police academy. I think I would make a good detective because I know how to use a BB gun and I am good at communicating with people. I am very curious about stuff which might come in handy. I like to read murder mystery books. I also like to play clue games. I need to get better at being quiet. I am good at getting information from people by asking a lot of questions. I watch shows like Chicago PD and NCIS. When detectives go undercover, they don't go to rich houses. They go in like sort of rundown houses. Crime can happen to anyone, whether you have money or not. When you're a detective, you need to think outside the box. When you're a detective, you need to be good at noticing stuff at crime scenes. You need to be good at keeping quiet. We had a Franklin County Sheriff named Deputy David Duvall come into our classroom to answer questions that I had about being a detective. He told me that when you get shot with a taser, you can't move your muscles for 5 seconds. When you're in the police academy, you are in it for 18 weeks. I learned that when you're in the police academy, you can volunteer to get shot by a taser. One requirement is that you have to get sprayed in the eyes with pepper spray. When you work in a small county, you probably think there are not a lot of calls, but there are a lot of calls because you are working in the whole county. When you work as a detective, you can pick what kind of detectives you want to be. There is a homicide detective who investigates homicides. There is a criminal detective who do everything. There is a cybercrime detective who looks into people that hack or damage something by computer. There is NCIS, they look into crimes done or happened to people in the Navy. A college I could go to is the University of Pennsylvania. Some courses I have to take are criminology, introduction to criminal justice, criminology theory and evidence, and elementary statistics. I want to be a detective when I grow up because you can help people and solve crimes. I hope I don't have to investigate you, Mr. Sanders. Crime see-through Mr. Sanders is a big no-no. Questions?
How were my answers when I was there, okay? Okay.
One of the shows that you watch on TV, my children happen to watch just about all of those shows. Which one is your favorite?
Chicago PD, probably.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. You did a great job.
Shelby, you're with us too. I think I saw, I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see beyond this table. Shelby, do you want to, at that mic, would you like to say anything about what the kids did? And every one of them I went around and the way this set up, just so you'll know, I went around the room and I asked students what they wanted to be when they grew up after I had answered their questions. And Aiden had several probing questions, so I think he's on his way. But the girl sitting right next to him, the student next to him, wanted to be a dog groomer. And I have 2 German Shepherds, and I said, I certainly want to interact with you one day. And then Mr. Detective spoke up, and that's when I said, I'd rather not have to interact with you. So I think that's what led to his editing of his essay. But Shelby, you want to talk a little bit about what went on in that class?
Sure. I've been teaching 3rd and 4th grade for quite a long time, and for about the past 5 years, I have worked with other teachers in the district, and we have done a career exploration unit. And this year I was the only one that did it, but I feel it's really important for students to really start looking at what kinds of careers are out there and what opportunities there are. So each of my students this year picked the career that they're interested in, and they did some research. I've invited different people to speak to them. I was able to get connected with a friend whose daughter went to MUD University. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of that, but I hadn't really paid attention to that, but it's for makeup artists. And so this woman went to a school in New York, and she was able to connect through email with one of my students. So it was pretty exciting. So I've been able to try to find connections for each of them with a professional in the community. And it's been very powerful, I've found, over the last several years.
That's wonderful. I like the idea of connecting them with the right people.
That was really fun. I remember coming in and talking. That was really fun. They're so inquisitive and
And I do appreciate you inviting me in, and it was after that I remembered when I was working with some young kids as a coach in Freeport, and Eve Byther at the time was superintendent of schools, and she went out of her way to talk to me and said, it looks like you interact well with kids. You might want to, entertain the idea of something in education down the road, and that still sticks with me. So little words or little interactions can have a big impact, so thank you for that opportunity.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we have Employee of the Month, Jack Eustace, Educational Technician in Phillips.
All right. So some things that were said about Mr. Jack Eustace is Jack has held several positions during his time in MSAD 58 and has done a great job in all of them. Jack has demonstrated extreme patience with his students, whether he is working with students one-on-one or while he is addressing a full classroom. Jack is not afraid to step in to help when he is needed. Jack has formed a connection with many students with whom he works. Jack would be a great recipient of this recognition.
One of Aiden's probing questions was, do I have to stay for the whole thing? This is where I tell you, Aiden, no, you do not. This is the end of the celebration phase, so I would encourage Ann to use this over there. Please feel free. We will not be offended. We will be envious if you get up and leave at this time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Congratulations.
John, can you hear me? I know you've joined the Zoom.
I can, yeah.
We're going to plug through a couple of other items if you're okay with that. I don't know what kind of time crunch you're on. Are you okay with that?
No, no problem at all.
Okay, thank you, John.
And can you hear me all right?
I can hear you perfect.
Okay, good.
Next, we have correspondences, letter of resignation from Kara Wheeler, Technology Department, district-wide. I would say that we accept with regret the resignation of Kara from the Technology Department. Next, we have nominations. Lindsay Dakers, Guidance Counselor for Mount Abram.
Second hiring form in your packet.
I didn't see anything in the packet.
Should be in there.
Towards the end.
Yeah, it's probably out of order. They got added late.
That name sounds familiar to me, Lindsay Dakers. What is
it
she?
says rehired, is that new hire? Oh, it is.
She's
new
been
hire.
in the district before.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
When did she start?
Shelley, what was you talked about the start time?
23rd?
says here the 23rd of.
It says the 23rd of August.
Right.
Yeah, it's about 5 days.
Yep.
Then does this mean that the current person goes back to full-time English?
Yes.
Is she coming from another school?
Sorry.
Please remember to speak closely to your mics.
They may regret it later.
So I make a motion that we accept the letter of
Nomination.
nomination. I was trying to follow. For Lindsay Dakers for guidance counselor at Mount Abram.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
It's unanimous.
Great, thanks, Nicole. Discussion items, 7v7 soccer tournament.
Jared, are they going to have to go to that mic to be able to share? Okay, so please, during these items, yeah, Darren already knows the drill. Thank you, Coach.
Good evening. Darren Allen. I'm a history teacher here at the high school. I'm also the boys soccer coach. What Angel, my wife, is passing out to you is a little bit of history about our tournament and a proposal what we'd like to do this year. In years past, it's been a 3-day boys and girls Friday night and Saturday morning, and then the boys would come in and Saturday night and then into Sunday. This tournament is a huge fundraiser and a team building experience, not only for the Mount Abram teams, boys and girls, but also teams from all over the state. We have raised approximately $10,000 in 2019, and we've split that between the boys and girls soccer program. And as you can see, it is accounted for a number of things. We've purchased a PA system that we not only use for the soccer program, we use it here in the school when we used to have morning announcements. Together as a school, a video camera, a video software, referees fees for the summer, interest fees into tournaments, and cold weather gear because our teams play so late in the season because we're in the playoffs and it gets cold. Our 2021 proposal would be a day only, Saturday for the girls and Sunday for the boys with no camp out or buffet meals. We would require less teams. Just the fact that there's no camp out, we're probably not going to get teams from the county or Eastport. Round robin play in pods to ensure that we would have certain teams here only for a certain amount of time. They would leave and a new set of teams would come in, and we would follow all current MPA guidelines for modified equipment and rules, and we would also follow the current CDC guidance, masks, etc. On the back side of the handout is what our tournament staff responsibility is, and the MSAD 58 responsibility is. Also, I might add that the boys and girls, also non-soccer players, use this as community service hours. You know, we have porta potties set up, changing toilet rolls, which is always a glorious job, and other things of that nature, helping out, moving equipment, helping out with other teams and such. But we're just putting out our proposal for 2021, which would be a 2-day tournament, no camp out. The number of people here would be far less what it used to be. This has been going on since 2008. Mark Keller started it, and then we started adding boys teams in 2012. So I'm just asking the board. Todd's been to, I think his first introduction was the tournament in the summer of, 2019. It would look drastically different than what we have done in the past. Just wonder if there was any questions.
Obviously, you stated that you would abide by all the CDC, so I'm assuming that would that would also account for spectators, parents, and whatnot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whatever the current CDC.
Yeah, by then it will be up to 100% outside capacity, so it would just be the social distancing with non-family would be the biggest challenge probably.
Yep. Okay. Great.
I move to accept the 2021 proposal for soccer classic.
I would second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darren.
Thank you, Darren.
Be good to get that back.
It will be
Mountain
good.
Bike Club. Everyone knows Jed, right?
You, Barbara?
Good evening. My name's Jed Nickerson. I'm a teacher here at Mount Abram, and this is my first time approaching the school board to start a club. So I would like to keep it brief and then answer any questions that you might have afterwards. We would like to start a bike club.
Yay.
Yes, reached out. I like the idea of being a part of the community. I like the idea of having sports that allow athletes to push themselves on their own level. Team sports are fantastic. I've played them. I still continue to play them. I'm also like to get out and push myself. And I think that the mountain biking provides that opportunity for a lot of our students, or that don't necessarily have that going for them right now. Also, looking for opportunities where we can do things together. We have a lot of guidelines that dictate that we can't. I see this as an opportunity where we could. Another aspect of this that I really encourage and like the idea of is that although this is a Mount Abram bike club starting out, I don't see it as just that, exclusive at all. I see it as inclusive and an opportunity to invite KES, PES, SES, to have their upper end middle school students come and join our club. Speaking with the students here, they would be more than happy to provide a leadership mentoring role as these students become more familiar with our grounds. I feel like last year we kind of missed out on an opportunity for a lot of these kids to get used to the high school before they got here. If we had this program up and running, it would have helped in a lot of ways. Yep. So a lot of people are behind me and on board with this. It would be one thing to have a single teacher stepping up and saying they want to do this. I think it's better when you have like two in case somebody's busy. We have more than 5. And so if life happens, we will be able to have anybody and everybody show up and continue on with our plans, which I'm sure you guys might have some questions about. So,
I have a question, Jeff. You answered one of them. I was wondering how many volunteers you had aside from yourself, but also how many students have you had show interest in this? What are you looking at for numbers?
roughly 8 students at Mount Abram, 8 students at the elementary level, and I'm anticipating more. That was a very brief, soft questionnaire that went out, and I think word of mouth will get out pretty quickly, especially once they see the scope of the program that we want to get up and going.
Just going to be on the trails that we have around here, the trail system, or are you guys going to be crossing roads or anything like that? Is there going to...
Initially, we'd be starting off with the trails that exist, which is exciting. The track team is very excited because we'll be helping with trail maintenance. And so we'll be starting off with that. We'll look to build our own The ability level of our riders will be on a variety. So we want to meet the needs of the riders. And so we'll be developing our own. There are other locations throughout the state of Maine that have beautiful bike trails as well. So we will be looking to meet the bike group or have members meet out at different locations and enjoy those trails as well. Yeah, I imagine we're going to have to cross a trail or a road at one point or another, but these are designated crossing sections, and we would, follow all the safety protocols to do so.
Cindy?
So are students required or expected to provide their own bikes, or are there some available for use?
Excellent question, and those that do have bikes are encouraged to bring them in. Part of the program is to help instruct proper maintenance to enhance the performance of their bike and keep up the longevity of it. Also bring in their helmets and safety gear as they will. But not everybody has a bike or not everybody has a bike that they want to bring. So we have members that wish to write letters to the bike manufacturing companies and see if we can get sponsorship and contributions of the sort. So bikes, gear that goes with it, spare parts, maybe cool jerseys. I'm not sure. We'll see.
Julie?
What's the season? Is this a year long? Is this a fall or spring? What's the?
It really depends on the rider. I'm an all-season athlete. I would love to be out there in all this weather. I mean, there's no bad weather, it's just bad gear. So if you get the right gear, you can go after it. I imagine that some of our students might be more fair weather. There might be some staff that are like, well, maybe not today. But I would like to have this as a year-round opportunity for students.
Steve?
Do we have any different concerns about safety or injuries compared to regular sports? Seems how they're on a bike and crashing into trees.
I would have to respectfully come back with some more information on that. I'm not up to date on the statistics of mountain bike injuries compared to soccer injuries or football injuries or skiing injuries. Life has inherent risk, absolutely. And the thrill seekers that do come out and or the avid riders that want to come with us will have a very good understanding of what they're about to take on. Like I said, there's going to be varying levels. So we might just have students come out that are just learning their bike. So in the parking lot we go, and we'll just have obstacles and kind of roll over 2x4 and learn how to shift weight. And you're going to have some very avid riders that get out there on the weekend and on their own, and they charge it. So we'll have to take them through the course and introduce them to where the burns are, the turns are, and the berms are, and everything that's going to be a part of it, so they know what they're setting themselves up for. But yeah, we're going to have some scrapes, I'm sure of it.
Well, I'm playing devil's advocate here, just to make sure the school's covered that.
I'm just watching Lynn when he said
Watch
scrapes.
videos on YouTube and people,
Yeah.
the front tire falls off or something, they crash.
So you did say you'd be assessing the skill set and not allowing them to exceed that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I wouldn't put a student in harm's way.
No.
I know how. I'll keep them safe.
How often will you be getting this group together, Judd? Like once a week, once every couple of weeks?
I'd be pumped to start off with the group getting together once a week. That would be really great because I would like to bring in tips, practice sessions, as well as going to different locations and enjoying that. That might be better left up to the club. So I'd like to ask the members what kind of commitment they really want to put into it.
Right.
Perhaps they have a very busy schedule going on and maybe it's once every 2 weeks. I like to be flexible and think about what's best for the club.
I understand. Thank you.
I make a motion that we accept the Mountain Bike Club to Mount Abram
Second?
and beyond.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
In favor.
Thank you, Nicole. Great, thank you, and thank you for doing that.
Thank you very much for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Next, we have the school calendar, 2021-22.
Yep, you have it in front of you. Very similar to what we had, obviously, to start this year. Obviously, we moved a bunch of workshop days to the beginning, but that isn't something we should have to do. Moving forward, we should be prepared to either go with some kind of a hybrid model if we still have the restrictions imposed upon us by DOE and the Center of Disease. But you have it in front of you. We've aligned it with Mount Blue and Spruce, so and Rangeley, so we do not have more than 5 dissimilar days. Actually, with one of the other districts, we only have 1 dissimilar day, and I think the other one is 3. So we're about as close as we can be on that. So I would like the board to adopt the calendar so that I can let the tech center know that we are good to go. And they can submit it to the state, obviously, because the state has to approve those calendars.
I know it was mentioned before about snow days, and because we can do remote now, and I heard you commented that sometimes on a snow day, there's no power, which is, yes, but like, was it 2 winters ago, we had a lot of snow days.
Yep.
So, are we going to try to do remote to make up for snow days?
I'm trying to watch Dora to see if she cringes. The thing with the remote is we have to provide a lunch. You have to provide lunch for the students, even if they're remote. So we,
really?
yeah, it doesn't count as a seat day if you don't feed them. So we've talked about that, Dora. I don't know. You want to chime in? You're nodding your head. Go right ahead.
We had talked about storm packs, because there's been a lot of talk about that around all the districts because of the hybrid models this year. It's been a lot more, so we could work around that, but to send one home, it has to be used on that day to count it as that day. So we can't send home in September and say, hold it until December, and then try to guess which day we're going to use it.
But to answer your question, yes, that is a discussion point.
Okay. Could we use military meals, the MREs?
There you go. Steve? No.
Dora's giving the thumbs up, so that'll be her next grant.
Why not? They're good.
But that is obviously discussion. Another piece of that we're having discussion along this line is a virtual academy with Western Maine, the Educational Consortium, for those students who may want to remain virtual, but they would be able to still stay on our books, but also receive virtual instruction. But this calendar is hoping and planning for us to be back 5 days a week next year.
Why am I not seeing what day the first day is? I see it hot pink down at the bottom, but it's not.
Oh, maybe I didn't color
It's
code
not
it,
up
no.
there. It just has workshop. I'm assuming it's September 1st.
Correct.
Okay, all right. It's not on there, so.
No, it should be in
Yep.
bright pink there.
Yep.
I can update that.
You better.
Great. Do I make a motion that we accept the school calendar for 21-22?
I will second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
In favor.
Thank you, Nicole. Great, thank you. Next, we have student seat days.
Yeah, we brought this, I mentioned this at the last meeting as well. The state, as I've shared with you all, has waived student seat days, so that there is no longer this, for this year anyways, there is no longer this number of days that you have to reach for your year to count. So we do have the flexibility of waiving the seat days at this point, and I know the timing is perfect because we don't know what tomorrow may hold in store. But at this point, we've used 2 snow days on February 2nd and March 2nd. So what the board needs to decide is how do we want to proceed. Right now, our last student day and staff day, because remember we moved all the workshop days to the start of the year, would be the 11th, am I right, of June? I see someone nodding their head, thank you. So the 11th of June right now is a Friday. That is scheduled to be our last day. The board has to decide what they would like to do with these 2 days. The 2 snow days that we haven't used, do we want to add them at the end of the calendar, or are we just not going to make those up as we are allowed to this year because of the seat days waiver? Go ahead, Cindy.
I would like us to have our students have all their seat days. There's already been so much interruption, and I know people think, oh, in the spring there's no value in having them there, but I disagree.
I agree with you.
And the last day is always a half day, so it would be that it'd be an extra day and a half the following week, Monday and Tuesday, half day.
Would you like a motion?
Yes, please.
I make a motion that, is it 175? I make a motion that our students have their full 175.
Now, we did give a comp day in December, so that would take one seat day away. The board approved a comp day for staff prior to the winter break, so it would be minus that one day.
Okay, so our student seat days would be 174. 2021.
Does that mess with graduation?
No, because seniors don't have to go to 175.
Right. No, it won't.
If we miss tomorrow, does that add to it?
It would add another day. We'd be going to half-day Wednesday the following week.
Would
So
that
there-
mess with graduation?
Nothing messes with
Nothing
graduation.
Because we've had
Graduation
this
is set in
conversation before about moving graduation, so I'm just trying to.
Seniors don't have to attend the full
Right.
number.
Because we,
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second motion?
You already,
Second?
I think you did, yeah.
Oh, I did? Oh, did you make a second? No, I didn't think
Oh,
so.
I'm sorry.
Any further discussion?
Well, I just
Can
have,
you repeat the motion, please?
I made a motion that our students have 174 seat days this year, which is, normally it's 175, and we already allowed one comp day. So they basically have a full year of school.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the 174?
In favor.
Thank you, Nicole. Opposed? Abstain?
Come on, Cam.
It was the logical decision.
Thank you.
Next thing is district's facility use. As I shared, the opportunity to utilize facilities is increasing over time. We've already shared that in March and then May. We are starting to get requests. We have not been allowing any requests from any groups not affiliated with MSAD 58 for inside facility use, and I would encourage the board to continue with that, at least till the end of the student school year. But we are starting to get requests for outside facility use, and as I said, those facilities are at 75%, will go up to 100%. So I would advocate that we allow the facilities to be used, outside facilities to be used by agencies or groups other than those affiliated with MSAD 58, as long as they are adhering to the social distancing protocols and COVID protocols. Baseball's a big, I'm looking for Jeff. Baseball's a big one, isn't it, Jeff, that wants to use the? Yep.
Do we need to have them sign off saying they acknowledge and they will adhere to the CDC guidelines?
That's not on our forms that we currently have. Could we add it? We certainly put a little attachment to it. I don't think there'd be any issue with that. I can ask around what other districts are doing. Most districts are allowing outside use and still prohibiting inside use.
And what was your comment, Todd, on the building usage?
I would say I'd keep the building usage to just 58 groups affiliated with us for the remainder of this school year. Summers, there's probably not a lot of internal use in the buildings during the summer. Summer basketball will be affiliated with us. Lorraine does an extended school year program, but that's later in the summer. So I would say that those indoor facilities won't be much of an issue over the summer.
You want to vote on that one?
Yeah, just a motion or just a show of hands, people are okay with that?
Yeah, I would
Good.
say it's any, yeah.
All right, good.
Everybody's okay with
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, Dora, you're up.
Okay, I told everybody to try to make sure that they set a little wishful thinking for me, and we got the van. Pretty tickled about that, so.
Nice job.
It's a 2022 taxes and fees will be paid for at the time before we get it. We got custom wrapping and branding, which is this.
You have it in your packets as well. Yep. If you go, there's a picture of a van in your packet. We can't see anything. There you go, Dora.
Oh, there you go.
But it's in your packet as well.
Oh, I see it now.
Dora's pictures on the back of it. Not on the back of the page, Kim.
And I
Well,
love
you'll get run from it.
So congratulations, Dora. We didn't jinx you, or you didn't jinx yourself when you said you received, was it full plates, full potential?
Full place, full
Yep.
potential partnered with Hannaford. And we get $5,000 along with that for insurance and, any maintenance fees that we incur for a startup. And Hannaford is providing us with insulated cooling blankets to help keep the food cold as we deliver it.
Wow, that is
Wow, that's
wonderful.
nice.
I have a
Exciting.
question about this van.
We're pretty tickled.
I have a question. So is this one of these rear-wheel drive ones like the Postal Service is getting for vehicles around here that isn't going to be able to do anything in the winter here? Because
Is that you, Serena? I can't
it is me, yeah. Yeah, well, I saw that
You
a
want to
bunch.
know if it's rear-wheel drive, and that might pose some issues. Is it rear-wheel drive or?
Well, I'm gonna put it in the shop for that $5,000. I'm gonna put a lift kit in it, big butt tires. I'm gonna make sure it's all-wheel drive.
All right, moving on.
No, did you see that though? The Postal Service is buying a bunch of vehicles that are rear-wheel drive.
Well, congratulations.
We'll take it, whatever it is, and we'll
We'll deal with it if we have
yeah.
to.
Yep.
It was kind of a joke.
The day when everyone drove around in
Yep.
drive cars.
Yeah.
Hey,
Nobody
thank
can
you
do
so
that
much,
anymore.
Dora, for that.
Thank you.
It's more fun.
Next, we have the strategic plan presentation from the New England School Development
So
Council.
I'm going to mute this one, right, Jared? John, I'm going to thank you. I'm going to have to mute myself here, so I'm going to thank you for being as patient as you have been with us, and Jared's going to take over as far as the host and display the slides. So you should be able to see the slides and make sure we're on the right ones, John.
Okay, very good. Can you see me?
No?
Not that that would be a good thing necessarily, but there we go. Okay. Very good. All right, I would like to, first of all, take this opportunity to compliment the district for engaging in a facility best use study prior to moving forward with any decision-making on future facility use. That's a very important factor, and we feel that that's going to be, something that districts should do prior to making those kind of decisions. Also, before we move into the information itself, I did want to take this opportunity to thank the superintendent and the members of his central office staff, as well as the building principals and several of the folks within the community who had contributed information, and they were just tremendously helpful over the course of the study. So again, I want to just make sure I thank you for all the help that you have given to us on this project. Next, we're going to take a look at the first slide here, and before I get into the discussion of the information that we gained through the study, I did want to provide everyone with a brief summary of information concerning NSAD. We are the New England School Development Council, as you can see on the slide. And the organization actually originated over 70 years ago. It was started at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. It currently is operating as a nonprofit organization, and the central office is in Marlborough, Massachusetts. Currently, this year and over the past few years, we have had approximately 250 member districts throughout New England. And the good thing that we feel is that more than half of those districts have been members for over a 10-year period of time. So we feel that that's an indicator that the services that we provide have been helpful to the districts. And generally speaking, our services include executive summaries where we assist districts in, with either principal or superintendent interviews and so on, and finally determining information that the district can use to vote on who will take a particular position. We also are involved in strategic planning with many districts. And then there are three other factors, all of which come into this particular study. We are involved with, to a large extent, demographic studies, which lead to an update and also factors considered to present updated enrollment projections. So we have done that. And then on top of that, we also do facility studies and facility best use studies, which we have done here. And with that, we get into actually communicating with the building principals. We gain information from them with regard to programming and also facility space use. And based on that, we are able to develop a facility capacity information, which we're going to be talking about in a few minutes. And obviously, if a district is aware of what their enrollment projections look like down the road, and they are also aware of what school capacity is for each of the buildings, then estimated capacity, then they can move forward pretty clearly with any decision making that has to come with regard to facility use. So that's the summary, and I just wanted to give you that information before we move forward, and so we can go to the next slide. Okay, and briefly, this is the NASDAQ project team that worked on this project, and we have different assignments as we're moving through, but these are the people that were involved in the project. Next. And now we're going to get into the introduction of the process that we used. Next. And we entered into an agreement with MSAD 58 to conduct a facility best use study. And the goal of the project was to provide a basis for decision-making regarding future grade level reconfigurations, that's one possibility, building renovations, and or construction and alternative use of a or more facilities. And so good long-range planning requires a specific mindset. And so folks particularly temporarily cast aside more immediate concerns in order to think long-term. However, the aspects of this report that we are going to provide can be helpful with regard to near-term decisions as well, by providing a better understanding of the long-term future of each building and also suggesting the alignment of grade levels to buildings in a manner that is consistent with your long-term plan. And so as a guide to budget planning also, funds can be earmarked for purposes that are consistent with your intended long-range use of facility. Next. All right. And so with regard to the scope of this project, we did a analyzation of district and municipal records and data provided by town officials and local realtors to help us with the demography, which would then lead to, you know, influencing enrollment projections. And I do want to say that the town officials and the local realtors were tremendously helpful to us. They have just been wonderful. And I also wanted to let you know that because there has been, you know, initially the project was conducted back in the fall. We have been back in touch with town officials and local realtors in March as we were preparing. And also, again, I talked to each of them this week. And so the information that we're providing is as of this week. And so it's very up-to-date information. And we'll be doing the enrollment trend analysis with, and then an instructional program review with a facility best use analysis. And so we will be doing that. And we had conducted remote site visits with Kingfield, Phillips, Strong Elementary, and Mount Abram. And again, the principals were very helpful, and we gained key facility information that we went over with the administrators. And we also reviewed school documents, including goals and programming and so on. The study did not include a capital assessment of assets. However, we did get information from the building principals concerning specific issues with the buildings, and we will be providing that to you. Next. And then we are also going to be providing options using both the information that we gained from the enrollment projections and also the programming capacity analysis. We have analyzed potential options for the district to review, and we've also been in consultation with the central office as we were developing those. And so this will help, we believe, to provide, you know, possibilities down the road. And it's important to understand that each of the options will have a bulleted outline description, as well as a listing of the advantages and challenges that we have objectively provided with each option. And so they are designed to serve as a catalyst for future analysis and discussion. And so this document, we feel, should be considered not as an end product, but we believe it will give you some very significant information as you begin future planning. Next. Next. Hello? Oh, there we go. Okay, so first of all, the demographic information. Next. And we're going to be fairly brief on these slides as we go through because they're referring more to national situations, but it is important to have an idea of what is going on nationally, what are the trends nationally that impact school districts. And so if you take a look at the bottom box there, you see U.S. births since 2008 have been declining. And there was a little bit of an uptick, that occurred a few years back. But then again, if you're looking at the red line there, you see that it went down significantly, had a slight climb, and then it ended with a downturn in 2015-16, and that is continuing. And so that's an important factor on the national level because births, obviously, 5 years down the road, most of them have an impact on school department enrollments. Next. All right, and again, this is a national study, and we took the New England states and wanted to provide you information. But in particular, if you take a look at Maine, all right, between the projection that has been made and this has been made by the National Center for Educational Statistics, indicates that in the state of Maine, between now and 2028, between 2016 and 2028, there will be a 5% decline, all right, in enrollments. And as you can see, all of the New England states are projected to have a decline. Next. Birth information specific to this district, MSAD, we have 58, we have taken a look, and between 2005 and 2009, that was during the economic upturn. And you can see that births averaged 42 per year in the district member towns. And then between 2010 and 2014, they declined. And that was during the economic downturn. And they have not really increased significantly since then, as you can see through 2018. And basic information that we're receiving is indicating that they are still pretty close to that 37 per year average. So obviously that's an important factor to consider as we move along, because we're down not tremendously, but births down by 5 per year over a period of time for numerous classes can end up with a negative factor in terms of growth. Next. All right, populations of the communities in the area. And we took into consideration with this, as you can see, all of the communities that have interaction in terms of sending students. And as you can see, if you take a look at the 2019 estimate versus the 2010 census, you will see that there has been a decrease to some extent in the estimates for the towns in the district, especially we're looking at 3,699 population in 2010, and it's down to 3,594. So it's down by approximately 100. And that is also happening among most of the other districts which send students. And so it's a factor just to keep in consideration. Next. All right, this is a very important factor. Median age of the population. And we have the census data from 2000, and we have the census data from 2010. And in July of this year, we will have the census data for 2020. But take a look at that. And if you take a look at first at what's happening in the US, and then you take a look at Maine, and you take a look at the county, and then all of the districts within, all of the towns within, and then also those who send students to the district. And you can see that by 2010, the median age had increased very significantly. And that is a major factor because obviously people in their 40s, and as you get down to some of the tuitioning in towns in their 50s, are very, very unlikely to be having births. And therefore, as we know, that births are probably the key factor in terms of influencing future enrollments. So that's a very important factor. Next. National level. On the national level, the boomers began turning 65 years of age at a rate of 10,000 a day nationally. And this was, until the millennials came along, the largest group in the American population. This is projected to continue for the next 9 years. And so, according to the regional and local realtors, many from this age cohort are likely to try to downsize to smaller homes. And so there is demand for apartments and condo units, and that is probably going to increase. And also on the national scene, 3 and 4 bedroom homes that are vacated by boomers are most likely going to be inhabited by families with children. And so that is a factor. The next one is a major factor, uh, and I believe it's a factor in almost every district. The millennial generation born between 1980 and 1998 has been comparatively slow to become parents and purchase single family homes. And the group, many of them, still, even till today, have high college debt. And that is a factor which, in many cases, has caused them to fail to get approval for mortgages, and it is a problem. However, many from this generation are now in their mid to late 30s, and they have decided to purchase single family homes and begin raising children. Very few people, as we all know, want to begin to try to raise a family in their 40s. And so the millennial generation, which has put off, uh, having children and buying single family homes, is now moving into that section, at least a portion of it. Next. And this is very interesting. We were given a list of realtors, suggested a list of realtors from the school department, and we were in touch with all of them, and all 3 of them, and they were all very, very helpful. And so this is what we learned from all of them. Days on the market are decreasing. If a home is properly priced, there are often multiple bids, but see the bolded factor. Inventory is very low. And as a result of that, home prices are rising in your area communities because of high demand and the shortage of supply. Families with children are often the buyers of the single family homes, but the inventory is quite low. And but an interesting factor also that has come into play because of increasingly frequent work at home situations, internet access has been important, and we have found that internet access, although not universal, is in pretty good shape in many of the areas of the communities. What's happening on the national scene, and this has been reported several times, is that the folks who were initially, because of the pandemic, told to work from home have now been told that they should remain at home and work. And so many of them who were in cities or areas that were much more expensive or not as suburban or rural as they would have liked, many have decided that they're going to sell homes in the cities or places they're renting, and they're going to move to either rural or suburban areas. Next. Okay, this is the building permit data for the member towns. And it goes from 2005 through to 2019. And as you can see, total district single family construction over that time period was very slow. And also at that time and continuing on, we have learned this year, there have been no multifamily permits issued in the communities that are the member towns. If you take a look at the non-district towns, you can see the situation there. And if you take a look at the tuitioned-in towns, with the exception of 2005, where there was very significant growth, there has been minimal growth over time, and no multi-unit projects had been approved. Next. Now, the town departments indicated that within the towns of Kingsfield, Phillips, and Strong, and Avon, there are currently no multi-lot family developments. And no multi-lot single-family developments, no multi-unit condo projects, and or multi-unit apartment projects approved and under construction, or approved and awaiting construction. And I was in touch with the planning departments within the last week, and they all reconfirmed that there have been no permitting multi-lot units approved in any of the member towns. Next. Okay, and then we had mentioned broadband access, and you can see that in the county, it's you know, around the 83% range, and for children or people under 18, and 81% for those between 18 and 64, and then significantly lower for those who are 65 and up. But your average is approximately 79%, which is not perfect, but it's a pretty good comparative average for the community. And so therefore, those people who are in need of access to the internet, in most cases, can get it. Next. Okay, our enrollment projections. Next. All right, they are based on a number of factors: student migration into or out of the schools, including movement to or from charter schools and school choice enrollments, residential construction, and overall volume of real estate sales. That is one of the most important factors. Changes in school programs, births, the most important factor, and then you see transfers and dropouts. And finally, continued economic stability on the national and regional levels. And I don't know if you saw it, but the Federal Reserve came out with this week with a statement indicating that things at this time appear to be continuing to move forward, which is a positive note. Next. Okay, these are the historical enrollments, and my wife advised me, and I think she's right on with this. John, please do not read all of those to the people at a presentation. And so I'm going to move through it very quickly. But the important thing, excuse me, to understand is if you take a look at the yellow columns, and you take a look at 2010-11, and then you take a look at this year at the bottom, and you see pre-K8 and K8, and you see 9 through 12. And then if you look to the right, the box to the right, you see that the differential K through 12 is negative 298. So the district has been down by 298 students during that time span. And it's very important to note the major decline occurred in the K through 8 or pre-K through 8 grade levels. Take a look at the high school decline. It was very small. And so that's an important factor to remember as we move along. Next. Okay, and this is just a shows this a little bit more clearly, I think, in terms of where things have gone in terms of enrollments. And you can see that we're looking at about just under 300. Next. All right, projected enrollment. Now, projected enrollment, again, is an important factor. And take a look again at the yellow, and you will see that K through 8 is projected to decline over the next several years. And then beginning in 26, 27, we are projecting that there will be an increase, which will bring the enrollments back fairly close at K through 8 to where they were, at the start of the decade. However, if you take a look at the high school enrollments, all right, they are projected to decline significantly. Now, why is that? It's because obviously the major decline over the earlier decade occurred at the lower grade levels, as we showed you with the, K through 8. Those students numbers, those enrollment numbers, the students are now moving forward and are into the high school. We do not see, if you look at the K through 8, a huge change in enrollments versus what they were in 2020, 2021. But the enrollments are not projected to decline significantly at those grade levels. They are, however, at the high school. And so our overall projection, if you look to the right box, you will see that we are projecting that the district K through 12 will lose approximately 101 students over the course of the next 10 years. Next. And here you see that. Okay. Next. And then obviously births to kindergarten are important. And you can see that at one particular time, the K enrollment was significantly higher, but that has declined along with as the births declined. And so that's an important factor. Obviously, they do have an impact on enrollments. Next. Okay, and then this is additional data. We've already talked about the permits. Enrollment history in terms of 9 through 12 with career tech. But those career tech students, and this is very important, they are still attending school at the high school. So they are, it's not that they move to another school to be there, a tech school permanently, okay? And then as we take a look at the other info, we do have information that there were 158 students, looking at the far right box, that in 2020 were choiced in or non-residents. And we see that there were residents outplaced, only one for special ed, and residents in charter or magnet schools that were choiced out, only 14. Homeschooled is 27. And that number may be higher because of the pandemic. And so that would be something to take a look at. Okay, next. All right, and this is your school by school for the elementary. And you can see that in all cases, the numbers declined versus 2016-17 through, through 2021. And then the black line indicates projections. And you can see the enrollment projections have a smaller but still increased decline. Okay. Next. Capacity analysis. Okay, in defining capacity, architects typically depend heavily on square footage. However, we count rooms using the perspective of a school principal who is creating a schedule for the building. So that's a different method that we use. We obviously consider square footage, but we are more interested in the number of instructional spaces that are available. Many of you may have seen situations where corridors of schools and entryways have tremendous amounts of square footage, which can't be used for instruction. So we try to focus primarily on the amount of space that can be used for instruction. We also asked the district for maximum class sizes, and you can see those listed, pre-K and kindergarten and grades 1 through 8 and the high school. And you can also see we're talking in terms of current building use, including deficiencies or portable classrooms. And so the top there is the current operating capacity. The planned operating capacity, POC, is for a 21st century educational program. And so it would mean it's doing all of the following bulleted items. Okay, keeping current programs, planning and construction purposes, providing appropriate core and specialized facilities, providing parity among buildings, eliminating most temporary facilities, although depending on what condition they're in, that's an important factor, and meeting code requirements. We advise districts, now you see this in the red, for long-term planning to maintain a minimum of a 10% capacity cushion. So when you see the capacities of the buildings, you will see that we plug in a 10% cushion. And we believe that's important because, various things can change. And whether it be a major problem with a building or something else. And so we mention that just because it's an important factor. Next. Okay, in conducting our review of each school facility, these are the areas that we kept in mind. And I just mentioned most of them, but you can see core facilities, instructional spaces, administrative, support staff, instructional and administrative technology. Are they handicapped accessible? Major systems and what condition are they in? Site information and storage. Next. Okay, now I'm going to take you through the Kingfield Elementary, and I'm going to be pointing out most of the factors there. But as we move to the other schools, I'll be maintaining, we'll go over the items, but we will be talking primarily about items that are issues, problem issues. Okay, so this is Kingfield Elementary. Next. And you can see the grades, pre-K through 8. 17.6 acres, built in 1980, addition renovation 1990, 34,686 square feet, 10 interchangeable classrooms, 111 students. Next. Current operating capacity and the planned operating capacity remain the same. And the way we compute those, you can see. Using the numbers that were provided to us with regard to maximum grade levels and the numbers provided with regard to number of rooms in use. And so you can see the total COC and POC are the same. We did not take any space offline to accommodate significant space shortages for other things. Next. Okay, it has 10 instructional spaces, interchangeable, one art music room, which has sink and adequate storage, and a part-time art instructor, one music room, adequate storage, part-time instructor, one intervention room, which is common in most schools now, and it is using the orchestra room, and that was indicated to be satisfactory. Two resource rooms, both of which have adequate storage. And then core facilities, the cafeteria, full kitchen, meals are prepared on site, 3 lunch sections or sessions, one serving line. It serves up to 60 students. It has seating for 80. And then you see the library, adequate storage, part-time librarian, gymnasium, stage is not handicapped accessible. It contains one teaching station for part-time phys ed teacher and adequate storage. And oftentimes we see this with elementary schools. It's a fairly common situation. Next. Administrative spaces. We see that things, principal, one office, one main office contains administrative assistance office and one workstation, adequate storage, conference room, adequate space. Nurse's office has a day bed. It does not have a private exam room, but that's fairly common in smaller schools. Restroom is handicapped accessible and there's a part-time nurse. One teacher lunchroom, adequate space, and adequate workroom. So that's positive. And in terms of support staff, you can see below, and the support staffs for the social studies worker, the space is shared and it's sometimes viewed as inadequate. And the part-time psychologist, same situation. Special ed, 2 special ed educators, and the space is adequate, as is the space with the ed techs and OTPT and part-time speech and language. So there are only 2 issues, and they are not major issues. Next. Okay, you can see the instructional administrative technology. Excellent, excellent. All very, very good. And we want to compliment the district on that because we're going to be seeing that all the way through. And then ADA access, curb cuts are available. Student restrooms are handicapped accessible. Adult restrooms handicapped accessible. Levered door handles and closed-fisted crash bars are evident, and the route of travel in the building does not require stairs. Next. Major systems, and this has been the case in just about every district we see. There are lots of issues, and adjustments are being made to the HVAC. Windows are noted as in needs of improvement. The roof is reported to be in need of improvement. Plumbing is satisfactory, electric satisfactory, and the walls, doors, and flooring are all reported as satisfactory. So it's just those top 3 issues. Next. Site information for Kingfield. With regard to that, you can see that parking is satisfactory. Event parking, as is the case in many districts, is in need of improvement. Field and play space is reported in need of improvement, especially for the soccer field. Areas for drop-off and pickup are reported to be in need of improvement because they are shared with the bus drop-off. And so sometimes districts want to move that because it does make it more congested. And proximity to traffic is noted as being satisfactory. And as you take a look at storage, you can see that classroom supplies, custodial supplies, and kitchen supplies are viewed as inadequate. We did not change the POC because of these inadequacies, nor the other two that we had mentioned, because we believe, A, that it could affect the presentation of instruction if we took a room out. But secondly, we think there are probably numerous ways in which either with some outside storage, which many districts support, or with, minor additions or changes in classrooms spaces, that there could be additional storage space provided. Next. Okay, so now we're going to Phillips Elementary. We're going to move through this more quickly because we have a lot of the information already determined. And so we'll go through it completely, but we will move more quickly through the process. So let's go first to the next slide. And here you can see it, pre-K to 8, 27 acres, built in 1988. And so that's a little bit more recent. Addition in 2003, a library and 4 classrooms, renovation 2017, ADA compliance, and an elevator. And so you can see the square footage, number of interchangeable classrooms, and the enrollment. Next. Okay, and then the POC is the same as the COC, and the central office, as you can see, and as I'm sure you all know, is housed in a converted interchangeable classroom and has a conference room. Next. Instructional spaces, you can see the numbers. And you can see the core facilities. And the library. And they are all viewed as adequate. Next. Administrative space. Conference room is noted as having inadequate space. And the nurse's office, similar to what we mentioned earlier, does not have a private exam space, but many nurses' offices do not have that. And they just are able to maintain the office in a way so that if a student does need an exam, it can be taken. And the restroom is adjacent to the office and it is handicapped accessible. And you see one teacher lunchroom, and that's adequate space. Superintendent's office, as best we can tell, includes these spaces and a conference room and a lunchroom. Next. Support staff. Here you see it. And as you look down the line, you will note that everything is viewed as being adequate space. Next. Instructional technology, the same situation, excellent. And so we want to be very complimentary to the district for what they've been doing. This is just excellent all the way through, really. And then as you can take a look, the ADA handicapped access is all in good shape. Next. Systems, as you can see, electrical and flooring are noted as satisfactory. The others are noted as in need of improvement. The HVAC is reported as satisfactory. However, the heat is uneven. We noted it as satisfactory, but there probably needs to be an adjustment there. Next. Site information. Event parking and sporting events is a problem, but that's fairly typical. But beyond that, field and play space, pickup and drop off, proximity to traffic, satisfactory. And you can see that at the Phillip Elementary, all storage is adequate. Next. Strong. Next. Again, grades, pre-K through 8, 11-acre site, constructed in 1952, addition renovation 1979, 35,000 square feet, 10 interchangeables, and enrollment of 130 students. Next.
I'm sorry, I just.
All right, you can see that the POC and the COC remain the same. There has been no reduction because of needing to take a classroom away in order to accommodate major deficiencies. Next. Yep.
Sorry, it was just, I know it was not in 1979 when the Strong was updated. I believe it was in 94, 90, yeah, it was 96, yeah. Correction right there. I was alive, I watched it be done, I don't know, and so I know, I was born in 1980, and I know it was done in the 90s when I was in high school, so. It is, it is. And it says it right on the school.
Go ahead, John. You can continue.
We okay?
Yeah, there was just some question that board members are aware that, and we know we were going by blueprints and things like that, that there had been some more recent renovations done on some of the buildings.
Okay. All right. And we will be taking any questions at the end of the presentation, and we're getting close now. All right. So you can see Strong Elementary and the class sizes and the planned operating capacity and the current operating capacity remain the same. So that's an important factor. Next. Okay, and the elementary school instructional spaces are all viewed as adequate. And then the cafeteria can serve 60 students. It does serve 60 students, but it could serve 85. Library Media Center, adequate storage. Gym, one teaching station, adequate storage. And it has a accessible stage as far as handicapped accessibility. Next. All right, administrative spaces. You can see adequate. Conference space, nurse's office. Same with the private exam space, but that's not a major problem. Handicapped accessible restroom, teacher room, adequate space. And it's a small room, the teacher work room, but it's the teacher lunchroom is adequate. The workroom is small. It is sometimes used for pull-out. Next. Support staff. You can see that as you go down the line, everything is adequate for the support staff. So those spaces are very adequate, and they take care of the needs of that group. Next. And then instructional administrative technology across the board, excellent. And handicapped access, you can see that they are all okay and in good shape until you get to the route of the travel in the building. Does not require stairs. The stage is not handicapped accessible, and that's usually something that is very easy to correct. Next. And major systems, HVAC in need of improvement, roof in need of improvement, plumbing satisfactory, electrical satisfactory, windows, walls, doors, and flooring satisfactory. So it's only the HVAC and the roof that were referenced. Next. Okay, and you can see parking, except for sporting events, and the rest is viewed as satisfactory for site information. And you can see that storage is adequate all the way through. Next. Now we get to the high school. Beautiful view. Next. And you can see the grade levels, 9 through 12, site acreage, built in 1969, modular classrooms and a pellet boiler in 2009, modulars in 2001, square footage, 74,000, 11 interchangeable classrooms, and the enrollment as of this October was 204. Sorry. Next. Okay, this is the way we compute for the high school. And you can see the 11 regular interchangeable classrooms, 25 student stations in each. So the total capacity of the interchangeables is 275. Science rooms, there are 3. Art rooms, there are 4, including the modular. The modular is still operating as best we know, in good shape. Health, 1. Music, 2 in the modular, 1 on the stage. So there are 3. Phys ed and multipurpose room, 25, 2 times 25. And then special needs, there are 3 special needs spaces, self-contained classrooms, and they have a max of 5 each. And so you see 640. Then, as I mentioned to you earlier, we make an adjustment of the 0.8. And so as a result of that, you can see that the programming utilization factor brings the capacity down to 512. And that is the same for the POC because there are no major causes for us to be eliminating or reutilizing classroom space at the high school. Next. Okay, you can see the instructional spaces, the art rooms, sinks and adequate storage, music spaces, plus the stage. And the core facilities can serve up to 125 right now, but it could serve more if additional tables and seating were added. The stage is used for music. There are 2 lunch waves. Library, adequate, used for academic support very frequently. Okay, and this is why obviously if there are some space shortages, oftentimes a school library can be used to deal with that. And the multi-purpose gym, 2 teaching stations. You can see the seating with the bleachers and floor seating. And oftentimes the gym is used for graduation by many districts. The locker rooms function and the restrooms are available and handicapped accessible. Next. Administrative space, as you can see, adequate. And you can see that all the way through, it is adequate. There is a private exam room at the nurse's office. And the teacher workroom we referenced is not used very often, but it is available. Support staff all the way through, you can see is in good shape. and there are no real problems. The speech therapist does not have a designated space, but as I mentioned earlier, uses the library and there is adequate space available there. Next. Technology, the same as all the other schools in the district, excellent. And ADA, you can see that with regard to the ADA situations, curb cuts, handicap parking, restrooms, route of travel, all are satisfactory. Next. Major systems, and as we go through it, as we did with several of the others, the systems of plumbing, electrical, HVAC, doors and windows, roof, flooring are considered to be in need of improvement. The walls are considered to be satisfactory. Next. Site information. The paving in the parking area is reported to need improvement. Event parking is satisfactory except for graduation. And I'll be honest with you, I've done numerous districts, and we have not found one yet that has been able to accommodate parking for graduation. It's always a major challenge throughout New England. Field and play space, soccer field needs an upgrade. Other areas are satisfactory. You can see pickup and drop off and proximity to traffic, both satisfactory. And you can see that all storage is adequate. Next. Now we go to the options. And using information gained from this analysis and combined with the projections and the facility capacity, we have analyzed potential alternatives for the district to review as it moves forward. The alternatives that we are presenting include a bulleted outline, description of each option, as well as a listing of advantages and challenges. And as I mentioned earlier, they are designed as a catalyst for further analysis. This document should not be considered as an end product. Option implementations typically take, in many instances, a minimum of 1 to 2 years. Next. Option 1, consider reconfiguring elementary schools to specific grade span schools. One being pre-K to 2, one being 3 to 5, and one being 6 to 8. And so you'd see the alignments. We have not designated which schools would be aligned that way. And then the high school would remain 9 to 12 or be 9 to 12. Next. The advantages of this grade span configuration affords more consistent class sizes. That's a very important factor. And because you have all the students in one of grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, they're all in the same building. So all the grade 1 students are in the same building, and that does have an impact on class sizes, especially if your sizes are getting lower. And the facilitation of collaboration, coordination, and communication amongst K through 8 grade level educators. Now, the grade level teachers at a particular grade level do not have cohorts or many of them available within the school. In this case, all of the grade 1 teachers would be working in the same building, grade 2 and so on all the way through. Grade 6 through 8 configuration provides a structure for a model, middle school model. And we know that's very common in many districts. And the configuration has the potential to increase support for special ed programming by coordinating programming by school. And obviously, again, that's a major factor. If you can bring grade level students into the same building, that's an important fact. The challenge is, this is important, it eliminates K through 8 neighborhood schools, creates potential challenge of realigning staff, creates a need to restructure and or expand some transportation routes. And obviously, this district has a lot of square mileage. Requires increased travel time for some of the K through 8 students and parents, and the possibility of increased congestion during pickup and drop off. And obviously, we had mentioned pickup drop off issues earlier. Grade 8, 6 through 8 building may need an update to accommodate middle school model with science labs, music, etc. Next. Option 2, consider closure of one elementary school and reconfigure grades pre-K to 2, 3 to 6, and 7 to 12, moving 7 and 8 to the high school. And so you'd see that alignment next. Advantages, again, the same as we mentioned earlier with configuration. That's the same. You get more communication, easier communication between classroom grade level teachers, and easier to coordinate and collaborate. And also, it does affect making class sizes more consistent. And the configuration allows potential for utilization of the vacated elementary school by collaborative programs and municipal and civic organizations. So that would be the major advantages. Challenges, same as before, eliminates the K through 8 neighborhood community school, realigning staff, need to restructure some transportation, increased travel time for some K through 8 students, and the high school building may need an update to accommodate the middle school model with science labs, music, etc. Next. Option 3, consider development of a super campus, closure of the 3 elementary schools, construction of an addition to the current high school. And so the grade level alignment would be pre-K through 12 at the super campus on the grounds of the current high school. Next. Advantages, it would have, again, the same as we mentioned before, more consistent class sizes, facilitation of collaboration, coordination, communication, creates potential to increase support for special ed programming, updated educational structure would address current needs, provide opportunity to upgrade existing high school systems, most of which are reported to need improvement, allows potential utilization of vacated elementary school facility by collaborative programs, municipal and civic, and facility should be plural. Next. Challenges, you can see them, and they are very similar to the ones that we've already referenced, as you see the first 3 bullets. Fourth one, same. There would be a significant cost of an addition to the high school, the 5th one, and it would need to assure that the high school site could support the development of a super campus. That would be obviously a step that would have to be taken before any decisions would be made to go forward. Next. Option 4, consider closure of one elementary school and reconfigure elementary to pre-K through 3 and 4 through 8 across 2 elementary schools. Okay, so you would have the alignment pre-K through 3 and the alignment 4 through 8 and one high school that would be 9 through 12. Next. And you can see the advantages, the utilization of vacated elementary school by collaboratives, as we mentioned earlier, operational savings, consistent class sizes, and facilitation of collaboration and coordination because the educators would be in the same buildings, potential to increase support for special ed challenges. You see them, and they are pretty much the same ones that we had already mentioned. The same challenges would come up. Okay, next. And we would like to congratulate the district, to commend them for commissioning this study. You folks have provided and enabled the development of key info concerning very possible situations with each of the schools. And also you are, providing some opportunities in the event that certain options are taken to assist with municipal needs. And so that's an important factor. And so this brings us to the end of the project explanation, and go to the next slide. And we are open for any questions that people may have.
Cindy. Thank you. Very nice presentation. I do have one question. I don't think of course, not having had a chance to review the information very long. I didn't see like a two option, like a pre-K through 5 and a 6 through 12.
Excuse me, I'm having difficulty hearing what you. Could you turn up the volume, or
You'll have to repeat it.
Can you hear me all right?
Oh, yes.
Okay, ask the question. What were the grade levels again, Cindy? She's inquiring why there were, if you had thought of two. An option for two schools, like a pre-K through 5 and then a 6 through 12. I only saw options where there was one super campus or 3 campus options.
We did not we did not consider that option. We felt that the setup that, or the various options that we provided would be the most successful, but we certainly could review that and provide you with information concerning it. But we felt that the grade alignments that we had put together would probably be the most successful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Julie?
I have a question. I don't know, relate to.
No, if you're talking to that, he should be able to hear it. So if you have this, talk right into the mic.
On historical and projected enrollment, are those numbers based on data including our surrounding areas like Highland, Carrabassett, etc., or are they only Strong, Phillips, Avon, Kingfield?
No, they're based on data. The projections themselves are what we do is we take the existing enrollment and we use what is known as the cohort survival method. And so for each grade level, we have a consideration initially of what the grade group was and what would be going forward. But then we make adjustments either up or down based on certain factors that come into play. And then we adjust our ratios based on those factors. For example, if any of the communities that are out of district communities who send their students to your district were to, shift or do anything along those lines, we would obviously make an adjustment to the enrollment projections. However, based on what we have learned thus far, we have seen that, all of the communities that are currently sending students have continued to do so. Obviously, if there was a change in that either with the community making a determination that they were not going to do that any longer, that could have a key impact.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have any further questions?
And I agree.
I agree, that was a great presentation. Thank you very much.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And, as I'm sure you know, but just to make sure that I emphasize that we are available for any follow-up questions that come down the road. And we would be very happy. You can just get in touch with me by phone or by email, and I'd be happy to respond to anything that may emerge. And again, before I sign out, I wanted to again thank all of the people in the district who helped us with this project because they were also tremendously helpful to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next we have committee descriptions, appointments, and reports. It appears that the academic committee, superintendent evaluation committee, the facilities maintenance and transportation committee, finance, meet and consult, wellness, did not have any meetings. And I'm not sure why the policy committee doesn't strike there.
We only had one. Two
Okay,
members couldn't.
so no
Two
meeting
members
with
weren't
them.
available, so we're supposed to push that to the next month.
So the only ones to report would be the recognition committee.
They already did earlier.
Thank you. The dropout prevention.
And I believe Brenda has shared some documents. And Brenda, if you want to go up to the mic so people can hear you. Jared, how are we with this? Should I leave the mic on here, or do you want me to shut it off? Okay. Dora, are you still hearing everything all right? Thank you.
So I had already handed out the middle school interest survey to all the board members. It's the color pie chart. And I'm just speaking on behalf, I'm just the chair on behalf of the great committee that I've been working with over the last few months with this. And we had decided to focus on the needs of the students, but to set the stage for success and for the students to feel that their voices have been heard. The high school's been doing a good job with that with the new committees, and so we focused on the middle school. The survey, what's not here, the things that were needs for the students, the middle school students, that is not on here, but this is the positive things that they said. The most enjoyable part of their school day and their favorite subject in their day, and then the top choices for additional classes, which was something the high school was focusing on, so we didn't want to leave that part out. So if you look at the largest enjoyable part of their school day was projects with their classmates. So I think that speaks volumes with all three schools doing more collaborative type projects. And then for their favorite subject of school, social studies, which was a little surprising, but we were excited about that. So the things that they needed, the middle school students, of all the students that replied, we had 85 replies, a lot of work with little time to complete, help understanding the work, reminders of due dates, and then time with their teachers. So they felt that those were things that they needed. So we feel that the committee feels that those are very easy things to address at all three schools. And I think that we are doing that and making that a priority. The other thing was to incorporate some high interest sessions And those are at the bottom of your survey that you have. And movies, what that is a 2 thumbs up, like reviewing, watching the movie, reviewing it, and doing the pros and cons and comparing to a book. Baking, pottery and art, and then of course outside, any outside activity that has to do with running or track, mountain bike, things of that nature. So we'll share this, the committee will, with the other principals. And I would like to thank the committee. They were good to work with.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you, Brenda.
Student representative.
I'll see what I've got. I think right now at the high school, most kids are really excited. Everyone's back 4 days a week, which happened just after the last board meeting I was at. So that's really nice. It's getting warmer outside, so we're allowed to go outside during breaks and have a mask break, which is really nice. And it wasn't something we were allowed during the winter. So that's exciting. And then as for school, AP exams are in May. So any AP classes are doing their final preparations and reviews. And then any standardized testing is also going on in May. So I think we're trying to wrap up as much of the learning as we can now so that starting next month we can start prepping for the exams and tests.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cam. Next we have general information, state of the school district's administrators. Starting with Mount Abram, Mrs. Tranton.
Thank you, Cam. You actually covered some of what I was going to share, so thank you. Very nice job. So it's that time of year when, of course, it's warm outside. Everybody's starting to get a little spring fever. It's been nice to have all of the kids back 4 days a week. That's been fantastic. Aside from, of course, our fully remote learners. And so we're gearing up for end-of-year testing, end-of-year activities, and more specifically, end-of-year activities for our seniors. So I wanted to share some updates with the board around the activities for them. And surprisingly, because I had reached out to the schools, the high schools in the MVC, just to see what they were doing as well, and it really is a mixed bag. I was kind of surprised to hear that a lot of them are not doing prom, but there are schools throughout the state that are doing prom. So the senior class advisors have been meeting with the students, having conversations with them about different things, planning for these different activities. And so with prom, it is scheduled for May 8th. And it's still going to be held at Sugarloaf in the King Pine Room. And there's a couple of adjustments that needed to be made to that to align with the COVID guidelines that we have to follow. So instead of it being a 9th grade through 12th grade prom, it's a it's a junior and senior prom. So all of the juniors and seniors are invited to attend. And the King Pine Room capacity is 200, and that's with following the social distancing guidelines. And our juniors and seniors can invite Mount Abram High School guests, so they can invite a freshman or a sophomore, but not inviting an outside student, just again following along with the protocol. If contact tracing were to be done, it's also limiting the exposure to, students that they're not already currently around. And let's see. They're currently working to see about having a larger dance floor, but also the students know The 6 feet apart has to be maintained, masks worn at all times, unless eating or drinking. There's also going to be game stations set up, which is something different than we've done before at prom, and that allows there to be, and it's done like in a different space, so that we don't have all the kids in one space at a time. And we are still going to have the senior walk, but the students suggested us doing like a recording or doing Facebook live streaming of it. So it means that there are no outside guests allowed in, and again, aligning with COVID guidelines that we have to follow, and still being able to provide a prom for our students. So that's prom. And also we are looking at having a couple of teachers be the DJs. Again, limiting the outside exposure and not hiring a DJ to come in. And these teachers don't know it yet, but we're going to talk to Mr. Boone and Mr. Denala about doing that. The Mountain Valley Conference has a top 10 award banquet every year, and our seniors were not able to participate in that last year because of COVID. And what has come together for that for this year is there is going to be an award banquet, but it's going to be done via Zoom for our top 10 students. And that's on May 13th. And details about that will be sent out to our top 10 students, which I'd like to invite them to either join via Zoom or come in person to the May board meeting so that you guys, so they can be presented to you guys, along with the MPA Principals Award for a senior too. So I wanted to share a quick video with you guys. I don't know if that's possible, Jared. It's a minute-long video. Is that super complicated? It's something that the kids put together. Okay. Okay. So, yeah. I mean, I could do.
So why don't you email it to him? Go back, email it to him, and then we'll move on to other buildings. Jared, can you get it while they're presenting? And okay, let's try to.
Well, I mean, I could talk about the other two things.
Okay,
and email it to him. Yep. So, as you guys know, traditionally we do a senior breakfast, and it's typically like a week before graduation. And so they've been trying to plan and figure out, like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to make this happen? We typically hold it in here, but with needing the spacing and things, we talked about like different options, like, okay, can we hold it, you know, have people come in here, get the food, but then go and eat like in a different space. And so the more that we talked about it and tried to do planning, we were like, well, it's the perfect time of year to do something outside. So for this year, instead of doing the traditional senior breakfast that we do, we're going to hold a senior barbecue for our seniors. And right now we're looking at the date of June 9th. But that's, you know, we're just ironing those details out with the students. So then the other thing is senior class trip. They would like to do a class trip to Northern Outdoors, which is a trip that they've done the past couple of years, excluding last year. Northern Outdoors is in the Forks. They were actually open last summer following all COVID guidelines. And the ideal situation for our seniors would be for them to be able to stay the night at Northern Outdoors with cabin rental, allowing for enough space where students could have their own room. And if spending the night was not an option, then they'd like to look at a day trip to go whitewater rafting. Ideally, they'd like to go up on June 7th and spend the night, do rafting on June 8th, so that's Monday to Tuesday, and return home late in the afternoon, early evening on the 8th. And then...
Shelley, can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah, of course.
For some reason, I thought I wrote down that you said prom was May 8th, but that can't be right because that's a Tuesday.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I'm pretty pretty sure.
Hold on a second.
She did.
Okay.
I did say May 8th.
Okay.
It's Saturday, May 8th.
Okay, but you just said the trip was a Monday and a Tuesday, and you said the 7th and 8th.
June 7th and
Oh, my
8th.
gosh. Okay, see, there we go.
Yeah.
That would be it.
No,
Okay.
that's good because, sometimes I do,
All
like
right.
say a certain date and I flip the numbers around or something, so.
Okay. Nope, that is my mistake. Okay. Just trying to write it all down here.
Yep. And, let's see. So then for graduation, the biggest goal was for students to be able to graduate together. They wanted to have one full graduation ceremony. And, we talked about having it outside, having it indoors. There's challenges, of course, having it outside if it were to rain. So we looked at like the cost of tents. Tents are extremely expensive and would have to have multiple tents. So there were limitations with that as well. Not that it would be impossible, but just limitations. And so we talked with Scott about how many guests we could have, like based on the square footage in the gymnasium. And fortunately, by this time frame, it'll be open to the 50% capacity inside, 75% capacity inside. But what we have to keep in mind is that 75% capacity that's outlined doesn't account for the spacing, the social distancing piece. So we were looking at having tickets given out to families like last year, except in order to have it so that all the kids can graduate together in one ceremony, we think that we can make that work. We just have to finalize some spacing and numbers. And it would be guests sitting in family pods. And the family pods would be 6 feet apart from another family pod, right? So and then the graduates would be sitting 3 feet apart. There would be no sharing of guest tickets because that would create a mix of family pods. And this, these ideas and guidelines came from looking at like the CDC guidelines and, getting some feedback from the other MVC schools. Of course, masks would need to be worn at all times. And we have to take into account, too, that there'd be 10 to 12 staff members in the gym, so that's part of the capacity. Because, of course, you have administration, the superintendent, the academic advisor, their seminar advisors are all in the gym, and so we take that into consideration. But we think that we can make it happen so that they can all graduate together and do it in the traditional formatting that graduation has followed in the gymnasium. And the other thing that we're currently talking about is holding the graduation in the morning, because that would allow for some families that have already planned for a party on Saturday to still happen. And so what we're doing is talking about this with the seniors, just like finalizing some things, because they participate in the planning and, give feedback as far as graduation goes. But right now, those are some solutions that we've come up with in order to be able to have them graduate together, which we were not able to do last year. We held 13 graduation ceremonies last year. Serena?
How many tickets apiece?
We think right now, and we need to double check our numbers. We've double checked them a couple of times, but we just want to be certain. If we graduate all 47 students as one full graduating class, it would be 6 tickets per student. Last year, students were able to have 9 guests, but it's because it was 4 graduates.
That's good. That's actually, I was thinking you were going to say something like 4, so.
Yeah, no, we really were trying for, certainly we didn't want it to be 2, because that would really limit who they could have. And so, if it is possible to have more than 6, we're going to look at that. So, we're trying to just keep things
you know, giving the students what they're hoping for and what they'd like, but then also still staying within the COVID guidelines. Jesse, did you have a question?
No, I just wondered if, the last time that we had the conversation, you said that more than likely it would be outside, because it could.
So we talked about that with the students, and we were talking about both ideas, and the challenge, the only challenge that we see with that is being able to, you would have to have tents in case it rained, and the expense of the tents is, you know, it's a large expense. So we've got a couple of challenges with that. So, again, not that it's impossible to do it outside, but just a couple of challenges to look at, see how to work around. So, you know, ideally, we would like to bring back, the seniors would like to bring back a field trip request for the senior class trip. But, you know, if you guys could provide feedback tonight, whether we need to focus on a day trip, or if we can look at an overnight trip, or if you guys would like additional information brought back to you in May, comparing the two, as far as like student numbers, what that looks like, how many kids per cabin, and things like that. And also if there are any additional questions around the senior activities, and if there's any additional information that you guys would like brought back at the May board meeting.
So tonight, we'll just go around and give you an idea of the board members that are all right with an overnight, and then, like you say, you bring it back
Yeah.
in the May meeting for a
Yeah,
vote.
that'd be very helpful.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions first before we?
I do, Shelley. For the overnight stay and stuff, now, is that going to be paid by who? Or do the kids have to pay themselves?
Well, so it depends on how many students go. They, fundraising has been a challenge, obviously, because of COVID, and they lost time being able to fundraise, but they are currently fundraising now, and the goal is to be able to pay for the trip for them fully, so that students wouldn't have to spend any money out of pocket for the trip. And again, that's something that we're looking at, and like, the goal is to make it so that they don't have to pay anything. Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking because some can pay, and then there might be some that can't.
Right, right. We want students that want to go on the senior class trip to go on the senior class trip, and there not be any restrictions for them to not attend.
What are they doing for fundraising? Because my senior definitely hasn't mentioned anything.
So they have done, it's called Regatta. It's a fundraiser selling like kitchen, cooking, cookware, things like that. And so they would have brought home like a small catalog.
If you guys want to do a bottle drive, I probably have enough bottles at my house to fund the whole thing. So just
I can
throwing
have
that out
Joanne
there.
reach out to you about it. But in the past, what they've been able to do for fundraising too has been like a bottle drive, and the seniors make a ton of money off of that. But with COVID, you know, like the reggae festival didn't happen because they would get the returnables from Sugarloaf, and that would bring in a ton of money, especially from Reggae Fest, and that's just not a fundraiser that they had this year. So, yeah.
That sounds great.
Shall I?
So can we just have a raise of hands for those that are? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I had a few questions about
Yeah,
going
yeah.
back to graduation, Shelley.
Yeah, of course.
Is there any way that we could look to have this graduation outside and change it within a day or two? Back to the 6 ticket thing. Because I believe by then we will be at 100% capacity outside, which wouldn't limit family at all to attend graduation. I also, I have 3 seniors currently working for me,
Uh-huh.
and I asked them about graduation. Are we going to make sure there's a lot of communication between these seniors and their parents? Because when I asked them about graduation, which was just last night,
Uh-huh.
out of 3 of them, none of them had a clue. And I was
So-
kind of like, you know, it's coming right up. You guys ought to find out what you're doing.
Yeah, so the senior class advisors schedule meetings with the students. And, to be totally honest and transparent, we have not had 100% of the senior class attend those meetings, which is where the discussions happen. But to answer your question, yes, that will be communicated, to parents in every possible way. Senior, date cards have been given out to the kids, and Jared posted them on our district website, as well as our school site connected to the website. And so we'll do everything that we can to get that communication out. And, you know, we definitely see this every year, you know, with kids. And it could be because of the time of day that it's happening, or they're just like, I know that the kids that are going to plan it. It's going to be fine. I'm good with it. But yes, to answer your question.
Okay, I just
And-
think communication at this time is
Yep.
extremely important for every senior parent to know what's
Right.
going on.
Absolutely. And then I'll share with the senior class advisors about the discussion about graduation outside, looking at that.
Okay, that would be great.
Mhm.
Well, no, because I mean, we could always move it.
Great. Can we have a show of hands for those that would think they would be in support of seniors doing an overnight trip?
I made agreement.
Overnight, Lois, for seniors to do an overnight trip.
Just so that, we'll vote on it in May, but this is just so that the seniors at this point know if they have to, it's just so they can make a plan.
It would be overnight versus a day trip. It's not, like if they don't have the overnight, they won't have a trip, right?
Correct,
That's
what I-
correct.
yeah,
We're
one
ju-
or the other. But
Yeah.
would the board be supportive of an overnight? If the board doesn't seem to be supportive of that, then they would have the opportunity to plan for something else. Correct, Shelley?
Where's the money come
That-
from?
That's correct. From fundraising that
fundraising.
they've done.
They gotta,
And
so they
parents.
Right, right. So those that would support an overnight trip.
I'm not against it.
Right. No, then that's fine. This is just an idea.
What was it?
I don't know. 'Cause
Would you entertain the idea of an overnight trip? It's not a committed vote right now, it's just would you entertain the idea of it?
Just so they can make a
things are
plan.
changing from the COVID.
So let's just have one more raise of hand. If you're okay with an overnight trip so that the seniors can plan on it.
Can I ask something, Shelley? And where would this be, you said?
Northern Outdoors in the Forks.
Whitewater rafting?
Yes, it's whitewater rafting. Yep.
Okay, I don't.
The kids had a great time
They
2
do
years
it.
ago doing it.
Whitewater
Oh, I'm
Raft.
sure.
You got about a 50-50 right now, Shelley, just to have
Okay.
to plan.
I mean, if we can bring back additional information, I just want the kids to know, like, hey, we can plan for this, but there's a possibility that it won't be approved. But at the very least, if they can do a day trip and they want to do whitewater rafting, I think that would be
Would be good.
really good. And, I mean, we could even do something where we came back here that day and did a dinner or something. But, you know, they would really like to. And this is part of the video. Jared, I tried to share it with you, but I can't. You know, where 2 of the seniors did a video about prom and their senior class trip, but they really would really like to do the overnight. And again, I can bring back more information comparing the 2 and what that looks like, how many students would be interested in attending, and then like how many students would be per cabin, you know, and give you guys more details of what that would look like.
And what the cost would be also.
Yeah. Yep. And like I said, Jesse, the goal would be that it would be no cost to them. Mhm.
Do you think you can email the board members the video?
I don't have
I have to request permission from them because it's not shared. I only have view access.
All right.
So it's been sent, and once they give me that permission, then yes, I can share that with you guys.
Okay.
It's like a short video. It's 58 seconds.
Oh, okay.
I was just hoping to be able to share it. They shared it with me to share tonight, so.
Okay, well. Okay. Okay, awesome.
Are we gonna ruffle feathers if, because I know earlier we said no field trips this year? At a board meeting? We voted that? Are we gonna ruffle feathers if now we decide we're going to allow a field trip?
I think things are a little different now than they were then, so I think you could go back and just say, and
Yeah.
in light of changes that have happened,
Yeah.
we'd reconsider our previous.
Definitely
Yeah.
changed, so.
Thank you.
Okay, so you're all set, Shelley, you
Ye-
know?
Yeah, I
direction
mean,
to head
unless you guys had any additional questions about anything. Because what I'm hearing is to look at graduation outside options for that.
Right.
And having communication with parents, and then bringing back to you guys the comparison between an overnight trip in the Forks and a day trip in the Forks. Was there anything else? No? Okay.
Great, thank
All
you,
right, thank
Shelley.
you.
Appreciate it.
Christine, over there, anything sports that you want to share? Okay.
Next, we have Strong Elementary. Brenda.
Hi again. So we're working on our National History Day presentations in the middle school. The kids are all excited about that. We had a sixth grader that won third in the state for the Patriot Pen essay contest with the VFW. We're excited about that. You'll get to see him at the May meeting. We did K4 Growth Awards via Zoom, and we did those in the Price is Right, come on down type fashion. So I stood in the rotunda. The kids were all in their room. It was all Zooming. They heard their name. Well, they heard why and their name. And I said, come on down. And they were running. It was really, it was very cute. We had Spirit Week this week, and we had our literacy event tonight that you heard. Phillips and Kingfield had theirs this week as well. We had about 32 kids, so we were excited about that. We're adding to our outdoor classroom areas during spring break, and I'd like to give Pete at the maintenance shop a big kudos on that. He worked this winter on some things that we had purchased, the materials through a grant, so the kids are all excited about that. We're gearing up, of course, like everybody, for baseball, softball, and NUIA testing. And then lastly, we're just excited for spring break. It's been a long 8 weeks without a break.
Thank you, Brenda. Next, we have Phillips Elementary School. Jeffrey.
Good evening. Hope you guys are holding up. It's been a pretty long night. Things are great at Phillips. After vacation, we will be starting up baseball, softball as well, and getting prepared for the NUIA test. That's a 3 through 8, and actually our first graders take it as well. But the state's really looking at data from the 3 through 8. We've had some volunteers come in and have helped us with a garden program. Our K4 kids have done some worm composting, and they've planted a bunch of seeds, and we have seedlings throughout the school and the library and the teacher's room, and so that's really, really neat. What else? Some cool things upstairs. Middle school poetry books are about to be published. The kids titled them "I Survived Middle School Poetry." So, so that was good. Tom Peacock's doing his annual egg drop for physical science. Kids really enjoy that. Okay, what else? I'm sure I missed something. Kudos to Jillian Withy. She's done these 3 sort of, we'll call them literacy nights, the week of the young child, and she's trying to get books in the hands of as many kids as she can. I think we had 45 kids at Phillips, but Jillian's amazing. girl, so she's done a great job, so kudos to her. I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Kingfield Elementary School, Johanna?
Sure. In addition to what Jeff and Brenda have shared about the Week of the Young Child, softball and baseball starting, we also have Girls on the Run starting, or that has already started. And then recently we've had a couple of great presentations. We had one by Maine Local Living School on brown ash basketry. And the kids all got to actually pound the brown ash off the trunk of the tree and then use it to weave. And then we had Ronnie and Nick Bear come from the Penobscot Nation and share their culture and music with all the kids. And we also have a great project, a lot of collaboration going on in the school, and one that's neat is between 1st and 7th grade, but in social studies. And then if you haven't seen the letter, Kingfield grades 5 through 8 are remote tomorrow due to 2 COVID cases associated with our middle school.
Thank you, Joe. Next, we have district-wide technology. Jared?
Okay, well, as some of you probably know, because we've mentioned it a few times lately, there have been some network issues at our schools. The increased use of devices, we bought a bunch of devices with CRF monies, so that now we're truly one-to-one pre-K-12. Some of the issues have been resolved with adding DHCP address pools. We were running out of IP addresses to give to devices. Some of those have been solved. Some other issues we're hoping will be resolved with adding some new access points that we purchased. Caleb and I started putting those up in Kingfield on Wednesday. We'll continue to work on them this weekend and then next week while everybody's out. And we actually have enough for one for each classroom in each of the schools. So we're hoping that that's going to alleviate a lot of the congestion and a lot of the issues that we've been facing. And the other thing, as you know, we are down a person. We discussed Kara's resignation this evening. So we are gearing up for when we come back from break to try and keep up the best we can with what's going on. We're probably going to be pretty busy, but that's okay. We'll get through it and we'll make it somehow. So the biggest thing, is just trying to get those network issues resolved. And we hope we found a solution for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Jared. Next, we have Facilities, Maintenance, and Transportation. Scott? Great, thank you. Good luck tomorrow.
Hope so.
Next, we have Special Ed, Gifted and Talented.
Things continue to go well in special education. And GT, we've been finishing up meetings, and we have lots more to go before the end of the year, but everything's going great.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Food Service with Dora.
Hey, so we're getting a new van in about 2 weeks. It's gonna be delivered, and I'm wicked excited about that. Did I say that already? Thinking about having an arm wrestling tournament and raise money for who's gonna drive that van. That's about all I got. We're working out the logistics on delivery to homes over the summer feeding program, so we're just working that out right now. So otherwise, we're just plugging along like everybody else. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dora.
Great, thank you, Dora.
Old business.
Old business, COVID-19 updates, vaccinations.
Obviously teachers are. Staff where the vaccine was made available. We have had a good number of our staff. We don't have the exact figures, but get the vaccination. The good thing about the vaccination, well, there's a lot of good things about it, but the good thing about it when it comes to quarantining is if it's 14 days past the second dose of the 2-dose series or the single dose, 14 days past that, then those staff do not have to quarantine if they're considered to be close contact. So that certainly will help us moving down the road. Unfortunately, as Joe said today, we were hoping to get to April vacation, which would have probably bought us a window of time for those who are getting vaccinated to be all fully vaccinated upon return, but unfortunately, we missed it by a day or two. Is that, there are some new travel guidelines, we'll get those on the website. I was just looking, I don't see them on the website yet, but we will get the new travel guidelines, and of course, that takes into account the vaccinations, because that's something that wasn't quite as prevalent as it was back in February vacation, so we'll get that on there. And then Joe already mentioned that we did have a case today at Kingfield, so that's where we stand with COVID.
Thank you. New business with the budget?
Yeah, there's a lot of new business with the budget. All right. So, Jared, do you have that presentation that Lynn shared, that I shared with you? You could just put up the first slide. I gotta set the stage before anything else. But, and Lynn, please, it has been a long night. Remember all those early ones? Remember the quick ones we had? Everyone said how quick those meetings were. Well, this is making up for it on the other end. But
Hi. Good night, Christina.
We're now the host. So, we, meaning Lynn and myself, were contacted by Tyler Backus. He is the school finance and compliance coordinator for the state of Maine. The reason he reached out to us is because we've been determined to be one of the 3 districts in the state that have faced the biggest challenge this year with with decrease in state subsidy and utilization of ESSER funds. So he reached out to me and asked if he could use our data as a case study, and he was going to share with area business managers, which he did today, actually, when he participated in it. I was kind of joking when he asked. I said, as long as we're not going to be made out to be the problem child in the state of Maine. Well, it's a good thing we shared the data, because as Tyler was preparing his slides, he stumbled across a couple things. The first thing is in our favor. It is the way we identified which teachers we were going to put into the ESSA monies and the amount of money, the impact that would have on our 8279. And we had taken to stay consistent, teachers right at the middle of the road to get to that number. As he was crafting his slide and showing other business managers how they could utilize ESSA funds to offset budget discrepancies and to increase their 8279, he encouraged us by the slides that he and Lynn and I met with him the very next day. And he encouraged us to move more of our lower paid staff into the ESSA funds, thus increasing the number of teachers in there, but keeping the amount of money the same. And we went from, I believe it was originally, we were still, because of our ratios, looking at $60,000, was it next year, Lynn? 54. And by making the slight changes that we made, we now will see an increase in state subsidy of 63,000. So that's a pretty good swing. So we were very happy that we reached out to him and allowed him to use our data. That's the good thing. The bad thing was, and it's the slides that I'm going to ask Jared to share in just a minute, is that because of the significant amount of money that we've cut from our budget, we are you can only decrease as a maintenance effort that you have. And I asked superintendents in both the Western Maine and the Kennebec Valley for their guidance, or if anyone had been in this position, and none of them have. The situation is we've cut too much money from our budget, and we're no longer meeting the maintenance of effort, in which we could lose additional and perhaps all state subsidy moving forward. So in addition to what we already didn't get from the state, if we cut our budget too short, we will stand losing additional money from the state. Have I said that right so far, Lynn? Okay. So to help people understand what maintenance of effort is, can you share those slides, Jared? I have to give Lynn credit. She was in that business meeting and she crafted this. Maintenance effort is a very, very difficult thing because it's very convoluted, and one thing here can have multiple ripple effects throughout it. So there's no real easy way to explain maintenance of effort. Lynn put these slides together to try to help us do that. So go ahead, Jared. You can change the next slide. Maybe. There we go. So if you look at the maintenance of effort, and this was after speaking with the state. I hate to read. I know we just sat through reading slides to you, and you can look at them. So I don't want to try to repeat everything that's on here. But if you look at it, we were barely meeting what's called the threshold with our version 6, which was the last budget that we shared with you. So we were So we were too close for comfort because if you remember what happened with special ed, we ran into a maintenance of effort last year because we had the money budgeted that we should have had budgeted, and we had it per pupil.
Spend it. However, because COVID came along, we weren't able to do that. There's always that possibility, so you don't want to cut it too close. So we were we lost it, Jared? Okay. Hello? Otherwise, got to bounce from headphone to headphone, headset to headset. Why can't just people can't see it? So I'll keep talking about it. But so what that version did not take into consideration was any possible changes that we might have with student staffing, which could impact our MOE. And because the state highly, and I will say highly, and I have an email where it's yeah.
Cam, it's up to you.
You don't. You can go, Cam, if you don't want to stay for this.
I was late. I'll stay.
You sure?
I have nothing better to do.
All right. Cam, that's no. He must have something better to do. All right. I was going to say you did speak very well tonight, though. That was probably the best report you've given all year. Thank you. So we've got a red star. Lynn actually started and came in and slapped it down on my desk and says, this came from the school finance and
Compliance Board.
So they
highly recommended that we add additional money back. We take some of the monies out of the ESSA funds, put them in, and in order to ensure that we make the maintenance of effort, that we can keep our state subsidy, we're putting it back into the local budget.
So that
resulted in the changes that we're talking about in version 7.
The next slide.
The next slide you're on right now, don't touch it, Jared. So to explain it as simply as we can, to meet DOE requirements, you have to maintain at least 90% effort in expenditures as compared to the previous year.
So you can't
cut more than 10%.
of your budget. And we were awfully close because if you remember, we were asked to come in with a 0% increase, which taking away the state subsidy and then additionally removing things and putting it into ESSER brought us down considerably low. District must maintain both maintenance of effort and per pupil maintenance of effort simultaneously. So what that also means is that they look at things like our student spending, our student per student expenditure. So that number also has to stay. Now the thing that we have to worry about our per pupil spending is that if we cut the pool down too low and then we get these students that come back, if you remember the slide they just showed said there were 22 homeschool students. Remember, that number's at 66 right now. So if we bring this number down and those students come back, like we hope they will, that affects your per pupil spending. The area that can really impact us in is our ESSA funds, our federal title monies. So if we fall below that, we could be in an issue with our ESSA funds, not only the school subsidy, but also our ESSA funds. With the ESSA funds, every 3 years you can ask for a waiver. We have never had to do that, and I would like to not have to do that. I would like to have that in our back pocket. You used to be able to get waivers with the state. You no longer can do that. They will no longer give waivers if you do not meet the MOE. Let's see. If the district fails to meet MOE, we'll lose state subsidy. An increase in federal funds expended does not impact the MOE. We are still required to expend money from our general budget. So it doesn't matter how much money we put into the ESSA funds or the CARES funds. And we did just receive a word that the CRF2 was approved, as was ESSER 2. So we're slowly chipping away at those. But it doesn't matter how much money we put in there. It's money. They look at what money is in the local budget. And then subsidized costs, such as our ESSER grants, may be adversely impacted, which I just said. Okay, Jared, go to the next one. What Lynn tried to do, and this is fiscal year 20 numbers, so you've got to remember we're 2 years removed, so the numbers aren't accurate reflection to compare with this year, because we don't have the numbers until the final year, the year actually wraps up. But Lynn just gave some numbers here to show you how you determine per pupil spending and what we would have to do if we were using those numbers as a comparison, what we would have to maintain moving forward. Lynn, do you want to add anything? This is more in your realm as far as these numbers. Is there anything you want to add about that, or is that's got it? Go ahead, Jared. And this is what I was talking about at the beginning. In our first version, our most recent version prior to tonight, version 6 of the budget, we had removed experienced teachers, but fewer of them. And that was going to
to hit a certain dollar amount. We have switched that, moved, we're still at that same dollar amount, but we've moved some of our, more of our lower paid teachers into that area. So ultimately, that would result in our EPS rates being reduced by both elementary and secondary levels, which have culminated to that loss of about 64,000. So next year, we would have lost an additional 64,000 in state subsidy. In short, if we move the positions like we did out of version 6, the problem of needing to reduce the general budget, it would have negatively impacted the following budget year. So there's that 2 year, always looking 2 years out. So whatever decisions we make this year will certainly negatively impact next year. So making those changes, as Tyler suggested, and as we have starred and saved in multiple places, the proposed changes with the staffing will help our ED 279, and the proposed money that we're saying should be brought back into the local budget will give us that cushion, if you will, a little bigger cushion, so that we don't run the risk of not maintaining the effort. And that's what Brian Churchill was trying to, and he actually picked up on that. We didn't pick up on it, and as I said, superintendents, districts don't cut this kind of money from their budget usually. So it's very rare for them to be in a situation like this. It's usually the other side of the coin. So the fact that none of them could, if Tyler hadn't done what he had done with our numbers, we probably would not have caught it, and we could have been in trouble. And the fact that Brian was able to pick up on it and bring it to your attention, and then I spoke with him today, was supportive of that. Go ahead, Jared. Next slide. So after we talked to the state, the version that you have in front of you, version 7, we chose to remove a greater number of those less experienced staff and bring the more experienced one back in. By doing this, our EPH will rise at both elementary and secondary levels, and we should gain an additional, and this is speculation because of all the intangibles at play, but we should gain an additional 63,000 for fiscal year 23 from state subsidy. And due to the difficulties presented to us by this budget year and next, we will need every advantage possible moving forward in order to meet MOE and to receive as much state subsidy as we possibly can. So what does that mean? Go ahead, Jared. So what does that mean? This is where it's not so good news. Version 7 that you have in front of you now, the purple version, stands at $9,396,930, which is an increase of $134,000 more than what you had in version 6. I believe version 6 was about $13,000 increase or something, if memory serves. You probably have those copies in front of you. Part of that reason for the increase is to make allowances for any possible changes with students or staffing and the impact that could have negatively on our maintenance of effort. Additionally, our maintenance effort calculations are based on our fiscal year 20 actuals. These calculations can change based on what fiscal year 21 actually shows us once that fiscal year comes to an end. And another component we need to consider is allowing enough additional money to carry over to cover main PERS. That's one thing we didn't realize. That's another thing that was brought to our attention, or in that business managers meeting today, I believe, is that all those positions that we moved into the ESSER funds, we were moving salaries and benefits into those, as well as main PERS. Even though the teachers will not show up on the on our ED 279 as employees in the district, we still have to pay their main retirement out of our local budget. So we had to bring that money back in. This has all been a learning experience, and as I said, very few business managers and superintendents have had to deal with this side of the ED 279 equation. So any of those positions removed from the general budget to be funded by COVID grant will still need to be funded at least part in the local budget. And I believe that was the last slide, was it not, Lynn? Yep. So I'm thankful we shared our data. It's unfortunate we're one of those 3 top districts in the state that are dealing with a situation. We're dealing with a significant subsidy loss and trying to absorb that in our ESSER funds, but it was good that Tyler had reached out to us and asked to use our data, because we would not have found us in the position we're in. So if you look at the purple sheet, the version 7, you'll see that the budget overall is still at a minus 9.230%. There's still that decrease in the budget from the previous year. But where we really run into, where you see the impact is to the locals. So if you go to the revenue sources, you'll see that, and I don't have, let's see. So comparing what we had previously provided to you and what you have now, we originally had Avon at an increase of $1,355, or 0.25%. That number now, based on the money that we brought back in to offset to address that threshold that we were at, is $18,388, or 3.39%. For the town of Kingfield, it goes from $35,921, which was a 2.28% increase, to $85,485, which is a 5.42% increase. For the town of Phillips, they originally were seeing an $8,290 decrease, or a minus 0.77%. They now see a $25,412 increase, or a 2.37%. And the town of Strong, which was looking at a decrease of $13,401, or minus 1.23, is now at $20,947, or an increase of 1.92%. Overall, it's a 3.51%, which is, to be honest, the range that is what you try to shoot for in any normal year, is that 3%-ish area. So in any non-pandemic, non-state subsidy reduction year, we would probably be happy with that. But obviously, this is higher than what the board had directed us to do, but unfortunately, there's not much we can do. We've pretty much been directed and told this is as low as you should go, or you could run the risk of losing additional state subsidy, which we would have to go to the locals to pick up the cost of. So, Lynn, anything you want to add to that?
Thank you for that, Todd and Lynn.
I hope that was able to explain a difficult thing to explain. I have not reached out to legal counsel. I certainly could if the board wished me to do so, just to make sure that, to reinforce what you've heard from us. We have to rely that with the information we're getting from the finance and compliance coordinator at the state is accurate. So that's what we're basing it on, and I'm just thankful he wanted to use our data.
Do we have another budget meeting in the book?
We don't. We could. I mean, this is obviously new information that you didn't expect. Just out of curiosity, people had asked before, you're looking at anywhere between $20 and $25-ish increase on a $100,000 evaluation in the four towns. We don't have the exact figures for Phillips and Avon, but in Kingfield it'd be $25 on a $100,000 property, and in Strong it'd be $23 on a $100,000 property.
Julie?
So the overall increase, is that only reflecting the movement of those positions that were in ESSER and now have moved back into
Yes.
only those positions?
Was it only those, Lynn?
I believe so, yeah.
And the Maine State retirement stuff. Yep. One thing you will see is a change. We did make that adjustment to the social worker position that was asked at the last meeting. And we did reach out and get greater clarification. We can portion that off, and if you remember, there were a significant number of special ed students that were utilizing that service, and not that many general ed students. Lorraine also had a concern about maintenance of effort when it came to the, moving that position, so we have put 95% of that back into cost center 2 and left 5%, I believe, in the general ed cost center 5.
100% of the K-8 social work expenses went back into cost center 2, and 95% of the 9 to 12 went into cost center 2, and we left 5% of 9 to 12 in cost center 5.
I think we figured there were 3 students, general ed students, who were utilizing that service. And then there was one other question after the board meeting the other night, which I was asked after it was being streamed, and the other board members weren't around, but there was on, was it line 818, I believe it was? Gee, that's from memory. What we've tried to do, it's the professional development piece, and what was happening is that number is not nearly as big a jump as it looks, but the issue was that it was being paid from throughout other locations in the budget, and this is one of those attempts to streamline it. So we've tried to bring all the professional development for the district into one line under one cost center. And we were talking, I think, Shelley, you'd said you spent about $2,500 or something on professional development this year. Our staff had utilized it, and I think a couple other administrators spoke up and said that, so that number was not, that 1,200 or 1,500 was not the actual amount of expenditure for professional development.
What line? I think it was.
818, I think it was.
881.
Oh, 881.
and Nicole mentioned this before the meeting ended.
Yeah. Oh, it was before the meeting ended?
Are you there, Nicole?
I am. Could you repeat that, please?
Yeah, you had brought up the 881 line. I thought it was after the meeting. I didn't realize that it was, I thought we were talking after we'd kind of adjourned. But
Was
the,
that the conference line?
it is, yep. And what I said was those numbers have been elsewhere in previous budgets. We're trying to bring the numbers in closer and to keep them aligned under one cost center, under one line, so we know exactly what we're spending in the budget. And I do have the actual breakdown, and it was about 30 different professional development opportunities for staff throughout all 4 buildings in the district. So it figures to about $2,000 per school for professional development.
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Cindy.
I'd just like to verify that none of the positions that were moved into grant funds are special education positions?
None.
Julie?
Are we asking questions?
Can I ask a quick question? Oh, sorry.
Sure.
Just a second. That was Nicole, right?
Yes.
Okay, just a second, Nicole.
Yeah, I can
Julie?
wait.
Oh, go ahead, Nicole.
With meeting the state's requirements in order to not risk losing our subsidy, is this the absolute lowest we can bring the budget?
No, but you would not want to do that based on what I said with all the unexpected things that we ran into, for example, with special education. This is what the gentleman at the DOE said would give us the cushion we should have. If you run it down to the exact 10%, you run a much higher risk of not meeting maintenance of effort and costing the district more money in the long run.
So we're basically in between a rock and a hard place that
That's-
if we don't go with this budget, then we could lose our state subsidy.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way Lynn, she used a couple more colorful things, but that's probably that's the way she explained it to me when she brought it into me and placed it on my desk.
Todd, do you have plans to go to each of the towns and explain the situation?
I do, yep, I do that every year. Now, how they're meeting this year, I actually went in person last year when we were doing it, and I think some of them are virtual, but I've got the meeting dates on my computer, so I can reach out to them, be it virtual or in person, but I can't do that, obviously, until we have the final numbers. But yes, Nicole, we are in a rock and a hard place.
Julie?
Okay, so I'm just looking at, back to the social worker, line 403 under special ed and line 889 on, I think it's cost center 5. No, it's not 889. It's 923, sorry, 923. So those two cover one position, is what I'm understanding, at 95 and 5% or something like that.
One of them is 100% in special ed. Oh,
No, 403 is 95% of the K-8, right? Or 100%?
Hang on, let me get this. So 403 is 100% of the K to 8. 404 is 95% of the 9 to 12.
Okay, so what is the discrepancy in those two positions? Is one full-time and one half-time?
One is a higher rate of pay due to experience levels and like steps.
This is on a teacher scale?
I believe so. Maureen, you might be able to answer that better.
Okay, that explains it. Thank you.
thank you, Lorraine.
Okay. Did you have a question, Cindy? Oh, okay.
Stretching.
Same.
And I apologize, I know it's been a long meeting, and this is not the way you wanted to probably end it, but we were really caught completely off guard, too, not realizing that we couldn't go as low as we could go.
Yeah, it is what it is. Next, we have reports. Board chair has no reports. Superintendent has had plenty of reports.
I do want to say the literacy events,
Patty?
no, the literacy events at all three of the elementary schools were so awesome. I got to get to all three of them, and they did a great job, the students and staff, so nice job on those.
My littlest one didn't want to go home.
Oh, that's a good sign.
Are you expecting a vote on this budget
Uh,
tonight?
Is the board ready to make a vote moving forward, or?
Is the board ready to vote for it, or would you prefer to have another budget meeting? No.
Vote.
Okay,
Let's vote on that.
all right, let's go ahead. Cindy, you want to make a motion for it?
No, I do not. Okay, Jessica.
I make a motion that we go with version 7 of the budget for year 21 to 22.
I second that.
Any further discussion? All those
We
in
actually
favor?
have a dollar amount listed in the motion.
If I can find it.
Oh, yeah.
9,396,930.
And the motion was seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
One more question, sorry.
Sure. No, go ahead.
So, this information that we need to meet this, threshold came from a state official, correct?
It came from Tyler Backus, who is the, where's his title? The compliance and, his actual title is Tyler Backus, School Finance and Compliance Coordinator and Maine MIC3 State Commissioner Designee.
So, yes.
And believe me, we're keeping this documentation as evidence.
Okay,
Thank you, Nicole.
thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
All those in favor?
In favor?
Yes.
And I appreciate the board's work. This has been tedious, to
We
say the least.
appreciate you.
And Lynn has done an outstanding job, as have the building administrators.
Shelley?
Okay.
Are you kidding?
Okay.
Sure.
Todd, can I just clarify, did anybody oppose that?
No.
Oh, no.
It was unanimous.
No. Just making sure.
No, I had it well before I went on this trip.
So we would like to hold our senior class prom on May 8th. It would be in the King Pine Room at Sugarloaf. They allow 200 people to attend.
I did.
He told the dentist, he goes,
We can't hear it.
I didn't mute my sound.
good, thanks.
So
You're
we would
muted,
like
Todd.
to hold our senior class prom on May 8th. It would be
It's plugged in as it has been for all the presentations. Nothing's changed.
Maybe you can Zoom it to us. Something. Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Big two of them, too.
Yeah.
Okay.
We need a motion to go into executive session.
We have a quick executive session.
It's a very quick one. And I'm going to have Lynn stay.
I make a motion that we go into.
in the King Pine Room at Sugarloaf. They allow
Employees, 1 MSRA statute 4056A.
Second.
Second it. Let's go.
All those in favor? That's your roll.
Good call, Julie, because I wasn't gonna remember what that is.
Thank you. Good night, everybody. Thank you for
All
staying
right, so
so
Dora,
late.
let's see, you're gonna have to leave now, and Jared, I'm gonna kick Jared out. I don't know how to do that.
I need to speak with you at some point. Okay. Yep. Yeah, if that's okay, I'll give you a call. Yeah, absolutely. All right, thanks.